It's an honor to speak here to you tonight. And to be honest, I'm trying not to speak too much about Barmer as a company, because I thought it would be way more interesting for you to understand how the system works. And this is not only true for Barmer, this is true for all the other statutory health insurances in Germany as well. But I think what's quite different and between us and most of the others is, of course, the size and the possibilities that come with it. And so I think we are at the forefront of this movement, and we could make things possible that not all have yet managed to have done. But after all, it's one system, and I think that's what I'm trying to cover tonight. I brought you lots of slides. I brought you some insights on the system, and then, of course, on our view. And I think that this might be or should be helpful for you when planning to come to the market and bring, hopefully, meaningful and helpful solutions to it. So let me just share my slides very quickly. So this takes 3 seconds. I don't know why, but the system takes three seconds to do so. Here we go. So since Henrik has already introduced me, I don't need to talk too much about myself. I think what might be of interest for you is that I'm an economist by training and in the middle of my PhD right now. In my not formal life, but some years ago, I actually learned to be a social insurance clerk by vocational training. So I think I know what statutory healthcare insurance means inside out. So what am I going to talk to you about today? I thought I'd break it down to first the market, then look at products and what products we are talking about, focus on customers, and after that, the statutory health insurance as a customer specifically. And since I saw most of the earlier talks you've already been able to listen to, I'm trying not to focus too much on the DIGA process or DIGA itself, because I think you've heard most of it and this would only be redundant. But we can, of course, you can, of course, ask any question to it. I think Henrik and I will be able to answer most, if not all of them, depending on how much specifics on technique or APIs and all that you want to know. But I think Henrik is on the tech side also more than capable of answering all of your questions. So let's fit in or move in. So first of all, the market. Henrik already mentioned some of it. The market size is quite impressive. So the German healthcare system consists of spendings of about 400 billion euro each year. And as you can see, the vast majority of it, 57% roughly, is paid for by the statutory health insurances, which means for 2019, approximately 240 billion euros. So of minor meaning is the private insurances covering for 8.5 billion, for 8.5% of it. And of course, there's also the nursing care, which Barmer has also here, but I'm talking about the healthcare sector tonight. But as many of you may know, all the statutory health insurances have the healthcare part and the nursing care part. So if you look at how this roughly 240 billion is distributed over the several entities or ways to spend money on, then you can see what might not surprise you or should not surprise you, that the inpatient care, so the hospital system, is the largest bit of all the expenditures, with roughly 1/3 of all expenditures there are, followed by the drugs and the outpatient care. On the right-hand side, you see our annual business report. pointing out all the figures in detail for BARMER. So you can see on the healthcare part, so again, not the nursing part, included, we spent roughly 33 billion euros, or we spent roughly 33 billion euros last year, expecting even higher figures in 2020 and the years to come, because this is a trend we've been seeing for the last years, and not only the last years, I would say the last decade, that costs are rising, of course. One specific I wanted to show you is, because I think it's quite interesting, is that the concentration, especially in the drug market, is increasing year after year. And I found this figure quite impressive if you consider that we spend 50% of all drug spendings on 1.69% of our insurees. Then you see that all of this developments we see in the market, so more personalized care. Zolgensma is probably a name that rings a bell in your head, with over or about 2 million euros for one syringe. Then you can see what this concentration comes from. And another part is that I put it up like Pareto doesn't keep up with those figures, since we are leaning more towards 90% of the costs that are caused by 20% of the people, rather than 80% as Pareto would tell us. So as for the healthcare market itself and who insures the people, Henrik already mentioned it. It's about 90% that are insured by the statutory health insurance system, with 105 funds now at the time behind it. This is more than 73 million people. 8.7 million are insured with the private insurances, and roughly 1 million people in Germany are not insured, or it's unknown where they're insured, even if there is an obligation to be insured, but these are the official figures. What's also important to know is that all statutory health insurance funds are non-profit organizations, so we're not here to make money by providing healthcare. For most of the people, the majority of people in Germany, it's mandatory to have a health insurance. So as I just said, it's really an obligation. So why 1 million is not insured it can only be explained by not obeying to the law. The whole system is based on solidarity. You pay your contributions solely based on your income. We have no exclusions for pre-existing conditions. The standard of care is uniformly defined. You can choose whichever insurance fund you want from. Of the 105, which holds true for most of them, some of them are only available regionally, and some of them are even close to single companies, which you will see on the next slide explains a little why there's quite some market concentration when you look at who of the statutory health insurances insure how much of the people. So there's a few big ones like us and the Technische Krankenkasse. I wish what Henrik said earlier would hold true. So right now we have roughly 9 million insurees, but we're working on 10 million, of course, and further along. So let's see where that goes. But at this point in time, it's roughly 9 million, making us the second largest. And I think it's quite interesting that 6 of the largest funds have half of the insurees. And everything that comes after the KKH, you can see on the left-hand side, is below 1 million insurees. And so most of the small funds don't play a really large role here, and this is due to being only regional available, or being even only available for single companies. So there are statutory health insurance funds which do not have more than 20,000 insurees. So that being said, let's take a quick look at the market of the physicians. There are more than 360,000 practicing physicians, 160,000 of them in the outpatient setting, and roughly 200,000 in the inpatient system, working in roughly 2,000 hospitals, which have roughly 500,000 hospital beds. So I think that's quite something to know, because what we have right now in the system mainly needs physicians to prescribe or your solution or play any other role in the process. So I think to see how much this is distributed and how many physicians there are is an important figure to know. So let's talk about what products we will be talking about tonight. And I borrowed this slide from Jan Bönnecke, which I think had a very nice talk. I think 1 or 2 weeks ago. I was actually trying to see all of them to keep up with what you already know and to not get dumber myself. So we're talking about solutions that are mainly used by the patients and that are mainly used in the ambulatory therapy right now. To break this down a little further, we're talking about apps, browser-based applications and software. I think what's really important to say, as in the digger track, is that the medical effect, the healthcare effect, is mainly achieved by the software. So it can include human services in hardware, but they're of minor importance. Usually those products must be CE marked, and at this point in time, risk class is 1 or 2A. As Jan Bönnecke put out, this is changing over time, since there's going to be a system shift from the MDD to the MDR, but I don't want to get too much into detail of that, because I think you're already confused what Hugh told you, and I'm not gonna repeat it. So you can watch this video on YouTube over and over again. I think he explained it very, very smoothly, and yeah, as easy to understand as it gets, I guess. So the only exception is for preventative solutions that they don't need to be CE marked. And of course, we exclude all lifestyle products, because this is not what the healthcare system, at least not the first healthcare market, deals with. And this is not what we're dealing with as well. In the background, you can see our current ecosystem, which should only give you a short impression of that. Barmer has quite some ecosystem right now of digital solutions. So these are all solutions that we included selectively in our service portfolio. And this is preventative measures as well as healthcare measures as well. So you see, it can be done. What I think is also important for you is to sharpen your focus. And I know it's not that easy to gain insights and to get data on the healthcare system and all of that. And that's why I wanted to give you 2 hints. First is our own institute, which provides data analysis, which provides reports. And this is also on the right-hand side with the link in it. There's a couple of reports we provide annually every year on drug therapy, on hospital therapy, so inpatient and outpatient therapy. There's a lot of data you can access freely. And it breaks down most of the system. Of course, it's what we are not doing is talking about only our injuries. What we usually do is standardize it to the German population. So all of the insights you're given there should be applicable to the whole of Germany and not only for our injuries. So the 9 million that we cover. The customer. Another interesting question. I tried to put it in this very, very easy to access slide, I guess. And this might seem obvious and this might seem very easy to understand, but we see a lot of solutions when people knock at our door and tell us they have the solution to all our problems, and what they have not faced so far is who their customer actually is. So if you look on the left-hand side, I tried to divide it into the key levers, and only cost savings and better outcomes are our field of action. If you have something that is more focused on saving time for physicians or any other healthcare professional in the system, or it's only about the customer experience, then you're probably we're probably not the right address to put your solution to. And that's why I just wanted to give you this little piece of advice. Really focus on your lever and build the case around it. And this might also tell you who to address with your solution and who might be willing or maybe only able to pay for what you've got to offer. If your customers are physicians, this are also 2 slides I borrowed from Jan, because I think this is quite interesting and something that not all of the people know. If you have a solution that is used by a healthcare professional, so it's part of the diagnostical or the treatment methods, then it's a huge difference if it's an inpatient or an outpatient care. Inpatient care having the permanent permit and a ban reservation, so you need to be stopped from doing something. And the ambulatory system is the opposite of it. So nothing is allowed until you get permission to it. And what I wanted to add to Jan's slide here is that one of the possibilities we as in health insurance have is the so-called integrated care, paragraph 140A. I'm going to get more into that later on. This is an exception for that. So if you have something that is not permitted so far, it can be part of contracts we as an insurance company, you as a medical producer of any medical digital health solution, and physicians can do together. So as long as it's not forbidden, and we can do it even before it's permitted to do it. So I think this is one addition to what Jan has already told you 1 week ago. Also important to know is, how do physicians think about digital health? And we asked 1,000 of them a couple of months ago, which was before the first DIGA was launched. And as you can see, the majority of physicians, so speaking 42% of them, like the possibility of being able to prescribe DIGA. About half of them is not sure, but only a minority of them does not like the fact at all. On the right-hand side, you see the other questions. How well do you consider yourself to be prepared? And this is another picture we get here. So most of them don't feel very well informed so far. Again, this was before the DIGA track was launched. And in the meantime, especially the physician organizations have put some effort in it. Henrik and I have put some, and the other statutory health insurances have put some effort in it. But I would think that this picture hasn't changed that much since then. Another question is, what information do physicians wish for, and whom do they want to provide those information? And as you can see, and which is not very surprising, sorry for not translating all of those, but mainly physicians want to be informed by physicians and their organizations. As statutory health insurances, we come on the 4th place with 44% of people. There's some noise in the background. Okay, thank you. 44% of physicians mentioning us as a source of information. And what I put there in red is actually you, or what you could be in the future if you have medical solutions, medical health solutions. Then they would also listen to you, at least 42% of them. And I think this is quite interesting. And if you look on the right-hand question, what information they need, then it's mostly overview. They want to know about the science behind it. So I think digital health is quite a new topic for the German healthcare system and for the German physicians. And if you look at the average physician, then it's not a 25-year-old young lady just finished medical school. So the average age is much higher, and it takes probably a couple of years for all of them to adapt the new possibilities there are, just as they do with new drugs and every other innovation that is introduced in the market. So this it does not happen by itself, and this is the basic information on this slide. So coming to us as health insurances, what are we looking for when we're evaluating health apps? Of course, safety and data security is important to us. My home turf is more the third and the fourth topic on the left-hand side. So patient centricity and the link to existing patient pathways. You need to be clear on what you're doing. You need to be clear on who you're aiming for. You need to be clear what benefit you're providing in the market. And this must be clearly linked to existing medical knowledge. And I think this is, for me and for us as health insurances, the most important thing. It needs to be things that matter, and it needs to be things that address problems that are there, really there and evident. But all of the rest, so safety, data security, and usability, are more than just let me say, for one, hygiene factors. That's the word I've been searching for. More than just hygiene factors. What we see mostly in the market is when physicians develop apps, it's more on the side of science, of course. And if you have a tech startup, then this is exactly what's missing. So they are only on the usability and data security safety side, but missing out on the evidence and the science behind what they should actually provide as a service. So the golden middle is what you should be aiming for. So it should do both. It should be evident, it should be science-based, and it should be of good user experience. So drawing this, putting this down a little more into detail, for us it's important, first of all, that we can do it. So it's on the upper left-hand side, you see the social code of law, which is basically our Bible. It entails everything we can do, and so it does already tell you what we can't do. This might seem a little technical, but that's just the reality. So what's not in there is no possibility for us. So, but what we're not asking is, because this would be more destroying efforts than taking them up. It's not the question if it already fits in. If it does, it's fine, but together we can see, and Henrik might tell you from his personal experience that we did this with what he did in his former life, if we can make it fit. So it's not always huge changes in the product itself to make it fit in the system, but it would be better if you considered this way ahead. And what I put on the bottom is if you consider all of those regulatory things that you need to address, and all of the science you need to address. Consider this as your business plan, because after all, this is what makes up for reimbursement or doesn't. So if you want to be a player in the first healthcare market, this is what you have to aim for, even if it's hard work to do. I'm sorry, but I think most of you know that, or all of you know that, but I think it can't be said often enough, because we see a lot of solutions that don't fit in the market and that can't be fitted in the market as well. And this is quite some effort for us to explain every now and then what is possible under the legal operation and what is not. So the good news is, since the last laws that have been passed, especially from last year on, with the Digital Healthcare Act, taking place in December of 2019, there's been some more possibilities for us to include digital solutions in the market. You have heard a lot about what is on the left-hand side in the middle. So paragraph 33A with the digital health solutions, or DiGAs. What is not talked about so much are the paragraphs 68A and 68B, which enable us to the facilitation of the development of digital innovations or the facilitation of existing innovation. So this is more on the side where we can work together with venture capitalists, as we do in our case as BARMER with Early Bird already. And what Henrik already told you earlier on, we've been doing this for 5 years now. And with the Digital Care Act, it has become reality for all of the other statutory health insurances to participate in this possibility as well. Beforehand, we had a special permission by the authorities to do so. So we were riding on this special permission, and now it's become law, and we're very glad to be the pioneers or trailblazers in the history of that, putting more effort into every kind of digital innovations to the market, and being also able, if not directly, but indirectly with money over venture capital, to boost the market a little more. So one of the most important paragraphs is the paragraph 140A. And don't worry, I don't want you to read all of this, especially since it's in German, but I will show you most of the most important parts that have been into it before the Digital Care Act. So it said that every contract that we as an insurance company made had to involve a physician. Quality has to outperform the standard of care. And you have to prove that you're cost efficient. You have to indicate it prospectively, and you have to prove it retrospectively after 4 years. So this is quite a hurdle to jump over. With the new law came this specific in section 4A. And it excluded, this is very technical, but I wanted to show you this because it shows how much detail work it is. So what is written in 4A says basically that the section 1, sentence 2 is not applicable anymore. And that is the section where the physicians were mentioned. So now, after the Digital Care Act, we are all of a sudden able to contract you as a digital healthcare provider only, and do not have to include physicians. And this is a major change in our possibilities given by this law, because as all of you may be able to imagine, this is a bottleneck that we just bypassed. So this is not me saying I don't want physicians in those kinds of contracts, but they are the bottleneck most of the time, and one of the main drivers for digital health solutions is that they're scalable, and all of a sudden they can play out that card, which I think is great, even though there will be contracts that should include physicians after all, but the possibility of doing it without physicians is quite great to have, and it's also good news for you. Here I try to make all of the regulation a little more easier for you. So there's a lot of certificates that are needed for several parts of the paragraphs, or the possibilities to contract with us as an insurance, or to get to the market as a standard of care. And this is what I was trying to show you here. On the left-hand side, you see all the paragraphs from prevention in settings, digital health competence, which is new, also with the Digital Care Act from last year. You have DIGA, you have complementary services to rehab, and you have what I just told you about the facilitation of development of digital innovation and the integrated care 140. So we have the CE mark, you have the Zentrale Prüfstelle Prävention, which is responsible for certificating or putting out certificates for all the preventative measures to make it reimbursable for the statutory health insurance system. You have the BfArM, which is the authority for drugs and medical products. And then you have BARMER or any other statutory health fund, which does not give you a certificate, but which is willing to contract you under the circumstances I mentioned a couple of slides before. So do you provide a good solution? Does it aim for an evident problem and all of that? So what's also important is the addressable market that comes out of it. So once, if you look at the first line there with the prevention space, and this is individual prevention, and you get the permission or the certificate from the Zentrale Prüfstelle Prävention, you all of a sudden get access to the whole market. So every and each of the 105 statutory health insurances will pay for your solution from that moment on. It's a different story when we talk about prevention in settings, so i.e. schools or kindergartens. Then it's contracts from the single statutory health insurance, so you address only part of the market, and so on and so on. This is what I was trying to tell you with this. So it comes with different restrictions to market access, but I think it is still quite worth knowing what you have to pass and what you don't have to pass. And you see the DIGA track, which requires you to get the CE mark first, and then the certificate from the BfArM is one of the hardest things to achieve, but it also comes with a nice price in the end, so you get to be playing on the field of the standard of care all of a sudden. I also tried to put this for you on a timeline, so having the product life cycle here. Most of the paragraphs and the possibilities for us to contract you are after market entry. So you have a product that is already there, that is ready, that is CE marked, that is in parts certificated by either the ZPP, Zentrale Prüfstelle Prävention, or the BfArM. But you have some possibilities earlier on. So when you're still in the idea phase, when you're still figuring out what the product might look like, then there's also possibilities for the insurance companies to support you. But let me put this very clearly. This is a possibility. We, even as one of the larger players in the market, have very few resources to get in this kind of intense infight, especially when you think about the 60A, so the facilitation of the development of digital innovation. This is a field we want to be a player on, and this really includes being part of the company afterwards, not only giving you some advice, but it's really deep integration that we are looking for. But this will be, I think, quite rare in the beginning, because this is not what the health insurances usually do. This is a completely new field. As BARMER, we're trying to be one of the first players on this field, just as we've been with the VC investments. But this is not now clear to say. We're just evaluating which possibilities we'll be going for. But this is a field of action we're definitely looking at. So I also put the operational obstacles that occur when you decide for either of those tracks. Don't let me get into all of this. You'll get the slides afterwards, but I think this is important to know, because the restrictions you saw in terms of market access and how many little humans on the last slide, on the slide before that, you've seen is due to the restrictions you have here. So let us just take a look at the left-hand side. So prevention in the video. You have the certificate from the ZBP, but it's mostly direct-to-consumer marketing, and the people need to go through everything, the whole service you provide, because when they're not fulfilling 100% of, let's say you're doing aqua fitness course or something like that, is quite hard to put into the digital world. But let's say you have 10 units they have to apply, and they only apply 7, they won't get the money back. So this is a restriction you have there. And when you look at the DIGA track and the complementary services to rehab, then of course you need to convince the physicians or the psychotherapists to prescribe your solution. And this means he or she has to understand what you offer. And this is, as I showed you earlier on, one of the key things we're working on right now. I don't think each of you has to fight this himself with the whole of the physicians, but this is quite something we all have to achieve right now. Physicians just need to get more knowledge. So one last thing, the DIGA process. You've heard a lot about the regulation of it. I wanted to take a short look into the process itself. So as you might know, it can either be prescribed by the physician or the psychotherapist, or the insurees, the customers, can ask us if they can have a solution. Then the prescription code usage, so we provide the code, the prescription code, which they can use to enter the solution itself, and the deduction is based on solely this prescription code. So this is very data minimization that we have here. We don't use more data than we need to. And why did we put the process as we did here? There are a couple of reasons we did it this way, and I tried to point out the most important ones on the right-hand side. So we wanted to have a process that the physicians are used to, and that let them be what they are and what they do best, and this is being physicians. So we don't want them to be the ones who have to explain why prescription code doesn't work, or why technique isn't working at all at the one or the other part. So we thought this is quite a key thing to get the physician to prescribe if he does not get another role in this. Also, the process is completely based on the existing infrastructure, so we didn't need to build anything else. And in the short period of time we had, this wouldn't have been possible as well. So it's good to use the existing infrastructure, but time made us do it as well. And the process we have here, due to using the infrastructure that was already there, is not only that it makes it highly secure and highly available, but it also minimizes data requirements, as I just mentioned. So when you see it from our perspective, we make it very, very easy. So you can just take a photo of your prescription with the app, or you can put it in online and you'll get the prescription code from us. And also, of course, we are explaining to you what the DIGA is, what it can do for you, so you find everything online as it should be. This again is the process at a whole, not going to dig into it. I think I mentioned the most important parts of it. So no additional players in the system, using the infrastructure that had already been there. And the whole deduction and billing process is only based on the prescription code that the statutory health insurances provide. So it's really data minimization. The providers of DIGA don't get more information than they need to have. And this has all been very important to us and to the Federal Ministry of Health as well. And this is why we were able to build this process from the ground up, and I think we did quite some good work there. So what's the take home? I think for you, Germany and the German healthcare market is highly interesting. It's a huge market. It has very good accessibility, not only for the customers and the insurees, but also for innovation, for new products. The regulation has become remarkably more friendly, and I really put this there not only by accident. I think it has become remarkably more friendly towards digital solution, especially starting last year, and it's not ending there. So right now we have the draft of the third digital law from this administration. So the story continues, which is making my time rather actually the leisure time rather small, so we all have to read through hundreds of sites and get out of it what we can get out of it. But still, not to be mistaken, requirements to get in the first healthcare markets are still tough, and it will require effort and hard work. So you need to create diverse teams, which in the best case include all of the expertises you need. So not only the medical side, also the tech side, also the regulation side. I really strongly encourage you to put as many smart people with different backgrounds in your teams as you can. Don't hesitate to ask for help. I think the Health Innovation Hub, or what you're doing right now actually, is trying to get help to find yourselves through this mazes. And it's not easy to find your way around, but it's worth the effort. And I think what I've shown you on one of the slides is that our ecosystem, which is only the selective one, but also the standard of care you can get in, proves that it's worth the effort. And one last thing I wanted to mention is, and I've mentioned it a couple of times before, to me it's most important, and to Barmer as a health insurance is most important, that you focus on evident health issues and you provide meaningful solutions. And this is what I like to end with, because if you don't appreciate the underlying problem, technique will not solve it, but rather only make it more expensive. And that's what I want to end with. So thank you for listening.